Hey everyone, welcome back to She Blurbs podcast. My guest today is Lexi Young Peck. So, Lexi, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I live out in the Pacific Northwest. I'm married. I have two kids. Vivian is 6 and Xander is 3. And then I am in my third trimester with my third. So we are building a farm, building a family. And I grew up out here. I was always a native to Oregon. And so this is my first children's book I've ever written, anything that was published. And it's been really fun hearing the responses that I've been getting from it.
That's amazing. I told one of the ladies at work because she has two kids. I was like, I'm interviewing a children's author today, and I was like, I'll see if I can get you a book. And she was like, okay, because she said she doesn't read to her kids, and I'm like,
Mm,
yeah, try reading to them. And she's like,
yeah,
okay, I'll check it out.
that's
But
great.
so, why are you known as the baby whisperer?
So growing up, I kind of fit in the weird spot of my family where I was kind of too young to be with the older group. And I was, the two younger than me were boys, and I didn't find them as interesting at the time. So we had a lot of cousins, and the babies would be around during holidays or get togethers. And there was something about connecting to babies that just came very naturally to me. I really enjoyed nurturing and taking care of things. And so having babies around was my way of filling my time. And as I got older, I started babysitting really young because of the way that babies responded when they were with me. So when I was about 8 years old, I was coming home from school and I would watch two of my cousins. One was 3 months old and then the other one was about 2. And I just took care of them from the time I got home from school. I put them in bed with me until their parents came and got them. And so there was just something about the development of little babies into young children that really interested me. And the way that they responded to me is why my family started calling me the baby whisperer.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. I'm still scared to have kids. I remember talking to you about that, about scared of having kids, and I'm like, I
Mhm.
don't know. But what do you like to do when you're not writing?
So when I'm not writing right now, I'm a full-time stay-at-home mom. So that is what fills most of my day, being with my kids and the farm that we have. So we we do a lot of farm chores. We're outside taking care of the animals, making sure they have water and food. My kids are getting very used to being a part of that, so they spend a lot of time helping me, and they love chasing the chickens around and playing with them. And we have a couple cats, and so that is what the bulk of our day is spent managing the farm and spending time with my kids.
That's amazing. So, what does your family think of your writing? Think of your new novel?
They were really excited about it. I wasn't trying to publish anything. I had actually written it as a poem for adults originally because the way that I was interacting with the story was in my own perspective. So just to get a little bit of background, my daughter was having nightmares and I didn't know how to help her. I was trying to help her by giving her head knowledge information of that I'm there and that I can protect her and there's nothing actually inside of her room that would hurt her. But night after night, it was still happening. It was recurring and I couldn't figure it out. So I asked my husband and he came in and had the conversation that you'll find in the book with the little boy, and it was actually with our daughter. And he pretty much gave her power within the conversation to face what she was afraid of and to actually experience what that would be like for her to face something that is feels too big or too scary. And so I saw that, and it the one of the really cool things about having kids is how much they teach you about yourself. You really a whole nother level of who you are comes out as you watch your children develop. Things that scare you, things that you don't expect, things that you never really thought about until you had to watch your child go through it. So that's where it started. It was me feeling the weight of, oh, I don't really face my fear very well. And maybe that's something I should do. So it started for adults. And then when a friend of ours who is an agent, now he is the one representing my book, he read it and he automatically thought children's book. And
Yeah.
so he asked me if he could send it to some publishers, and Tyndale responded. And so the big bulk of what I changed was just making it more geared towards children instead of adults, the language and such. But my family's responded really well. My dad is an author, so he it kind of was a similar experience if he wasn't meaning to publish, but it did, and it did really well. So there's it's kind of a cool little mirroring of what happened with him, and just getting something that I feel like is really important for our kids out there for others is really it's really exciting.
Yes, it is. So are you going to work on any other children's book, or are you going to try to gear towards adult books?
I probably will stick with the children's books for now. I can't imagine writing a full a full book for adults at the moment. Who knows? I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but at the moment, I do like the simplicity of the children's books, not only because it affects the children that are reading it, but it really helps adults enter into a conversation with their kids and maybe have a perspective they wouldn't have had before. So even though it's a book for children, the people who are reading it are the parents or grandparents or caretakers. And so giving them information or a new perspective that would help is something that I really enjoy too, which that's what I focus on my social media, is just how can we have different perspectives than what we're given, and how could they possibly be helpful in ways that we wouldn't have seen before if we hadn't asked the question in the first place.
That's amazing. I feel like children books they connect the parents with the children. Like it lets them learn about each other. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it helps kids a lot. So, what is one of the most surprising things you learned in creating your book?
Well, I had never gone through the process at all. So it was really fun working with Tyndale because they allowed me to be really involved in the process of choosing an illustrator. That was fun. They brought me a few different illustrators, and I was able to look at what they had done before and kind of imagine my book through their eyes. So that was something I didn't expect. I didn't know if they would be able to in that process, which I heard that sometimes they don't. And then also, it normally takes about 18 months for children's books to be, especially illustrated ones, to have the full turnaround of being released. And it was also fun that because of what's going on with the world and uncertainty with our kids and having to deal with a bunch of fears and things that we've maybe never faced before, they wanted to push it out fast. So it was interesting watching. It was 1 year that they got it out in, and just the hard work that goes into creating and editing and illustrating and the back and forth and all of that process. It was fun to watch.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, what do you think makes a good story for children?
For children, I think that something that can provide a new way of seeing the world that is relatable and connectable to a way that they can actually do it themselves. So that's one of the things within my book that I feel like I've heard the most feedback from is they read the book to their children, whether it's grandparents or parents, and they can tell them right back what it was that the message was trying to purvey, or what the child had done that was different than maybe what they would have thought to do. And so I think that you can't create a story for a kid where you tell them, okay, this is how you should do it, and then you should do it like this, and these are the steps. You have to create an image or a picture that they can hold on to and that they can enter into so that they have an experience with the story, not just head knowledge of what maybe what they think they should do or what they've been told, but it creates something different.
Yes, I like that. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about your book? What to say to your dragon? What to say to your dragon?
Yeah. So it is a little boy who has nightmares, and he calls in his mom and dad and expects the response of, it's okay, like, don't worry about it, you're safe, just come in bed with us, we'll take care of you. That's what his expectation is when he calls them in. And his dad sits down and asks him if he interacted with the dragon from his nightmare. And the little boy is kind of confused of why you would walk towards something that was dangerous in his mind. When he had been told that if something is scary, you should run away from it and go to your parents. And so it gives a different perspective of entering into something in our imaginations, because we're all creatives. We're always creating imaginations for ourselves, whether they're filled with worry and fear, or if they can be filled with curiosity and wonder. And so that's what I'm trying to do in the book, is to push the conversation towards curiosity instead of pushing the conversation towards the fear. And so the little boy actually practices looking his dragon in the face, naming what it is that's scary about it, and then seeing if what he is afraid of is the actual truth, or if maybe there's something that's happening that's different than what he initially thought.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. That is really amazing. So why did you center your studies on childhood development?
It kind of goes back to what I was saying about how I initially thought that children were so interesting growing up. And I saw the immense change that happened in the first about 6 years of kids' lives. And I knew that that wasn't a mistake in how we were designed. And so that when I was in school, it just captivated me. I wanted to understand why it was like that and how much more I didn't even realize that. I guess when I entered school, I realized how much more significant those years are than I even realized before. And so it just kept pulling my curiosity in that direction. And I also, before I had kids, I worked as a nanny. And I was able to experience different family dynamics and different experiences with kids, and how parents would have a really hard time with certain ages or certain stages. And because of the things I had learned, I could come in and be helpful in those situations. And I really liked that. I liked being able to say, hey, I might be able to help because I'm not the parent. The problem when you're the parent is that you're so close to the humans you created, and there's such a mirror image of who you are, that sometimes it's hard to step back and to actually see a different way of relating when the interaction with them just makes you frustrated, or the interaction makes you feel out of control. And so I like that aspect too. And I've pulled that into my parenting a lot, of saying, okay, I know that I'm really too close to this. So I will find someone who I respect, or that I appreciate how their children behave when I'm around them, or like just the way that they parent. And I will reach out and ask for help. Where I saw a lot of parents, I don't even know if they even thought to do that, or if it was just like, I should be able to take care of my kids myself. So that journey just it kept propelling me into deeper questions about how we develop and why we develop that way, and why it's important to have face-to-face interactions with your parent and all of that stuff.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you a lot. Like a lot of parents, they don't understand that communication with your kid is key. Like just letting your kid know. Like a lot of parents think like disciplining them by spanking them is going to work, which that's not my business, but I feel like communicating with your child will work. Like I feel like they do listen. They can understand if you speak to them on their level, you know? Like that's how I feel.
Yeah. Well, it is a whole different ball game when you have your own when you're home, and they push you pretty hard, especially during certain ages. So you have to, and each child is so different. So there is, my daughter is much more of a natural helper and wanting to get things done and do things for herself. And my son is not like that. He likes to run around and be free and play and jump and run. And so where it's easier to get her to sit down and help and focus, there we have to use a whole different strategy for my son, whose energy level is on a different planet. So there is a ton of nuance within parenting that sometimes the way you talk to one child will just doesn't work with another one. So having the flexibility within parenting to know when you need to have a little bit of a change and when you need to find a different strategy is really helpful too.
So, what advice would you give parents who are struggling with helping their children develop?
So I would say the younger, the better. Start having them do things that are hard. Start having them face things that feel a little bit outside of their comfort zone, outside of their skill range. And we naturally do that when they're infants. We naturally push them to crawl. We naturally push them to roll over and then to eventually walk. But it those are kind of those first milestones that we reach, and then we feel like we arrived at what we needed to help them to become small children. And so for me, I would really, really push to continue trying to find those next milestones and to embrace that it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be hard to get children, if they're more afraid, to approach things that scare them. If they're hesitant, that's where it takes a lot of time as a parent. I have an advantage. I'm fully staying at home with my kids, so I can be here to, if we have had days where there has been something my daughter's been afraid of, and we've spent 8 hours working with her on it. Because when you live on a farm, there are certain things that you just can't let go because it's dangerous if you don't know how to get out of hot wire. That was the most recent one. You have to be able to get out of the cow pen if something becomes unsafe. And so it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of strategy to figure out what those things are as our children are growing.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes a huge difference in if they can look back at an experience and they can pull from it and they can say, I remember when I was really afraid, but I also remember that my parent helped me. They didn't leave me while I was in the middle of trying to figure it out. And then I did it, and now I can do it. And it feels so easy on the other side of it. They kind of forget how hard that it was originally. But you can always pull back on that and say, remember how afraid you were, how long it took you. But we would never put you in a situation that we knew you wouldn't be able to succeed at. We put you in situations where we know we can show you a new part of yourself that maybe you haven't experienced before, and it's going to really help you. And those experiences have made them a huge difference in how my kids view their own abilities, as well as just giving something within the family, like being responsible for things and lending a hand and knowing that they're capable of that. I think it all starts really young, and it takes steps of time and strategy. But I think that's the best thought or advice that I could give.
Yes, that's amazing. That's great advice. I want to thank you so much for coming on my show today, Lexi. And I hope you
Yeah.
have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
So, I wanted to thank Lexi for coming on my show today and to purchase her book, her very first novel. It's a children's book and it's called What to Say to a Dragon. And she explains what it is in our interview. So you all can purchase her book on her website, which is linked below. It is going like tinkering below. So you all can visit her website, learn a little bit more about her novel, learn a little bit more about her. So I hope you all have a great day, and thank you all so much for listening to my podcast.